Hello boys and girls, on my desk right now is the start of a new SCX24 project. I've built a few microcrawlers so far, a couple of them SCX24s, a couple of 1/18th scale FMSs, and even a Kyosho Mini Z, but none of them brushless. Now I do have a TRX4 with a brushless motor, but I've not had a brushless motor in a microcrawler before. To be honest, I'm not a huge fan of brushless motors because all that torque and the FOC technology make rock crawling too easy. It's like you don't need to modulate your throttle with a brushless motor. You just pull the trigger and watch it go. To me, that takes away a part of the fun. However, with this build, with the FJ40 being my all-time favorite 4x4, I want to build the ultimate FJ40 microcrawler. I want it to look amazing and perform incredible, and that obviously would include a Furitek brushless system. I've chosen Furitek's Micro Komodo motor and their Micro Stellar transmission, as well as their new Python 2-in-1 ESC/receiver combo with their Kosmik transmitter, which is really just the FlySky MG4 transmitter that a lot of us are already familiar with. Having already built one Hardbody Crawler FJ40 before, I'll use the lessons I learned from that build to make something a bit more extreme and far more capable. I've chosen to base the truck on the C10 JLU or Bronco chassis, but these are aftermarket brass rails, not made by Axial. The skid plate is also made of brass, and I have Injora's rock sliders installed to protect the underside and the rocker panel of the body. And I have aluminum aftermarket shock mounts, both front and back, with a lot of different shock mounting options. I already have Furitek's Micro Komodo motor installed on the skid plate to check how everything fits. Look at how small the motor is. Because it is so small and light, I don't think it's critical to reverse mount it to have it face forward, because I need the room in the front for this 900 milliamp hour battery. And in the back, where the battery normally would go, I have this trimmed piece of battery tray to fit the receiver on it. Because the receiver is lighter than the battery, it's better to keep the battery in the front and the receiver in the rear. To make sure I have enough weight bias, I've stuck a bunch of wheel weights on the battery tray. And as for axles and suspension linkages, I plan on using these Meus Racing portal axles. The decision to go with portal rather than straight axles is because I know this truck with the hard body will never be a super serious comp crawler. It is something I plan to take with me out to the real world when I go off-roading with my 1-to-1 scale 4x4. So I thought the portal with more bottom side clearance is the way to go. Portal axles do raise the center of gravity of the vehicle, so I got the heavier brass version of these axles. I want to build this truck on a stretched wheelbase with tires poking out the front and the back. So here I have suspension linkages from a Jeep Gladiator or Dodge Power Wagon, even though I'm using the C10 chassis. For the front, I will be using these 39mm oil-filled shocks from Injora. And for the rear, I will be using these 42mm telescopic shocks from Injora. I'm not going too extreme with the shock lengths because I want to keep the suspension lift to a minimum and only use the portal axles to lift the truck to provide the clearance needed to fit the large tires I plan on using. These aftermarket shock mounts offer multiple shock mounting options, and I'll be playing around to see which positions offer the best articulation without any binding. And now these are the reasons I've gone with a widened track and lengthened wheelbase and the increased height of the portal axles. These are the largest tires I ever used on a micro crawler. These are DJ Crawler's 68mm diameter tires. These tires are mounted on a set of brass Injora wheels with, I believe, a 3mm negative offset. Hopefully this suspension setup would work for this chassis configuration and keep the truck leveled. And let's start putting things together. Alright, everything looks pretty good so far. I'm glad I have a lot of different shock mounting positions to play with, so I can set this up exactly how I want it once I have the body on. Because I'm using the C10 chassis rails with the longer wheelbase of the Gladiator, it reduces the space for the steering servo. What I needed to do to make sure the steering servo does not hit the front bumper mount is to use Injora's adjustable servo bracket to move the servo in a little bit. There is only enough room for a small servo. Right now, I just have Injora's 9-gram digital servo in here. If it blows, maybe I'll use Ramp Crab's steering servo. That is pretty small, but still a little bit longer than this Injora servo. I'm not going to be able to fit any high torque servo in here. I'm using Injora's brass servo horn connected to the brass steering linkages that came with Meus Racing's portal axle kit. And I have a couple of wheel weights on top of the servo to provide more front end weight bias. And yeah, that is it for the chassis. Let's move on to the body. Here are pieces of the body all sanded, primered, and then painted in Tamiya's TS46 and topped with a layer of clear coat. I've cut up the rear quarter panel to accommodate the larger tires, as well as the front fender flares are trimmed. I've cut a hole in the middle of the floor pan for the ESC/receiver to fit. Alright, let's start putting the body together. Looks good, doesn't it? I love this aggressive stance. I've painted some details on the body. I added a simulated winch on the front bumper. I've added bash plates on the rocker panel. And I've added lights. I've added headlights. I've added fog lights. And I've added a light bar on the hood. The light bar and the fog lights are controlled by separate controller boards that are connected to the channel 3 switch as well as the channel 4 button. The controller boards offer a few lighting modes: constant on, strobe, in this briefing mode. And well, let's go to my desktop proving ground to make sure there are no issues. And of course, later on, I will take it out in the wild and make one of my usual driving videos in nature. And I will add a link to it after I've posted it. Feel free to comment below to let me know if there are any other parts I should get to improve this truck. I'm not in the US, and not being in the US severely limits the parts I have access to. I'm mostly using Amazon and AliExpress. I will put a list of the parts that went into this rig in the description. If you like this, please like and subscribe. I have multiple other scale builds in progress, and I guarantee they too will look this good. Stay tuned.